if you go to Auschwitz today, most people, first of all, don't have any clue what it's about. You know, I was listening to a woman on the radio the other day. She was being interviewed by a revisionist, and she says, "Well, I was in Auschwitz or Buchenwald or something like that." She didn't even know what camp she was in. And this is the problem. Most people don't have any clue about it. I mean, even the people that were there, they don't even know what's going on. Auschwitz was not just one camp; it was three camps in Auschwitz. You had Auschwitz one, the main camp, then Auschwitz two, Birkenau, then you had Monowitz, and they were all completely different. All right, so Auschwitz one was the main camp, and you had people that were stationed there. Not that many. Probably maybe 10, 20,000 people might have been, there at the most, if that. But the big camp where they said all the people were gassed was actually Birkenau. But I'll get into Birkenau in a second here. So anyway, those three camps, okay, you have Auschwitz one, you have Birkenau, and then you have Monowitz. Now,
yeah, weren't they they were connected, right? The Birkenau was actually like the placement, right? This where all the barracks and stuff like that was, if I remember correctly.
Well, Auschwitz one had barracks too.
Okay.
But they just didn't have many. But when they show you all these barracks with a plane, there's a plane that in one of the videos I saw. That's Birkenau. Birkenau probably had 200 barracks. Huge. I mean, just the thing was just huge. Okay. But Birkenau was actually where most of the sick people went, the older people went, and that was Birkenau. Okay, so anything, when people say it was a place where people were being murdered and this and that, it was just the opposite. They sent the people there that couldn't work. All right, and they had a lot of people there that didn't work. Old people and the young people, kids were there and everything. So they want you to think that when people came into Auschwitz, if they weren't able to work, that they were exterminated, they were gassed and then cremated. But that wasn't the case at all. But anyway, I'll get back to Birkenau. Let me go back to Auschwitz one, because this is the simplest camp to deal with because it still is intact. It has a Crema one, the building there. Now, when you go into that Crema one building, you're going to see it. It just looks kind of weird. It has all these dirt mounds all around it, and it really looks like a bomb shelter, and that's exactly what it was at the end of the war. It was a bomb shelter, and they want you to think that. I remember seeing a video of a girl doing the explaining about it in the camp. They said what 4 million people went through Auschwitz. All right, and they made it look like all the people went through that camp there, but that building there was not made. It was not capable or made for gassing people. All right, at all. I mean, you go inside it. They chopped holes in the roof at the end, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, there's no way people were killed in that building. So they want you to believe that this is the building that people were gassed in. And when you go through, I don't even think they give you the tour like they did anymore. They cut you off from some rooms, but it just wasn't feasible that people were gassed in that building, and you could see it by looking at it. So anyway, I mean, you have to see the building, you have to look at the video, look at pictures, and you'll see for yourself that there was no way that could happen. It was an all big cement building inside. It was all cement. Eventually, they knocked down the walls way in the beginning, because they used to have, rooms. It was partitioned off with several rooms from the original plan. They cut the walls down. And another thing that people don't understand too: who's the they? Who did all this?
Mm-hmm.
Auschwitz, when it was taken over, in the beginning, was taken over by the Russians.
Wow, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. And so they had all this time to just fix Crema one, that building, and make it look like it was a gas chamber. All right, and that's how they present it today. And they presented it as being the first, where the first people were gassed in the beginning.
Now, tell us why do you think the Soviets would do that? Why would they come up with such a lie?
So they had to make it look like the Germans were bad guys. and they were, these guys were the Huns. You know what I mean? They were sticking people with their bayonets and throwing the babies into the crematoria. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they had to have something there to show for it. So they made Auschwitz One, Auschwitz One, making it look like horror Disneyland. So now when the Americans got there, okay, they already had the story that 4 million people were killed there. They already had the story. So they had to make the place fit the story. So that's exactly what they did. So now, once they started taking the Americans on the tours there, showing the Americans what it was like, the thing was already set up as being horror Disney World. Okay, so people would be told that this is what happened there. Remember, there was no holes in the roof of Crema One. They chipped the holes in later. It was concrete. I mean, they chipped them in later, saying that the Germans threw in Zyklon B through these holes. So I mean, the whole thing was all fabricated, and they were presenting Crema One as basically being the a real gas chamber from that day, but it wasn't. It was all after the war. It was all fabricated and made to look like something nefarious happened there. So that it didn't happen. They put the big, next to Crema One, they put a big chimney, a really big chimney that doesn't connect to anything. All that was done after the war, but yet they were making it look like this is an original building, and the Germans were killing people in this building in the beginning. So it's just absolutely ridiculous to see that was even the case. It wasn't the case at all. I mean, it was just it was a building that had many uses. In the beginning, it was used as a coal. They had coal stored there. It was used as a place to do emergency, stuff on people if they got hurt. Medical stuff. It was used for several different things, and it ended up being a bomb shelter at the end, because people don't realize this either, that Auschwitz was actually bombed. And they took some casualties. Some of the people in the camp did die, because of
right.
Bombings there.
Well,
so,
wasn't there? I don't know exactly all the numbers, how they divide up between the different work camps and all that stuff, but obviously there was an awful lot of people that died towards the end of the war at these camps due to various issues, right? From disease to food supplies and everything else, resources, medicine being cut off, right?
Right. Well, what happened? Yeah, what happened in the camps? Basically, in all the camps, the Americans and the British were bombing all the railroads, and they were bombing anything that came in, to try to starve these people out or whatever. And they did a good job at it, because no supplies got in, no medical supplies got in. In all the pictures that you see of people being skin and bones and all that, most of that all happened at the end of the war. The last month of the war, all that happened. So, but getting back to Auschwitz One, when the Russians got into Auschwitz One, there were people that died, sure, but there was nothing compared to what they said died. I mean,
right.
the Russians made up this concoction of a story that 4 million people died there. All right. I mean, they came up with that ridiculous story in the beginning, and they got everybody to believe it.
And they had to retract. How many? 3 or 2.5 million? They retracted from that later, right? Or was it what?
Well, what happened was they said 4 million, and then because of the revisionists now going after them, saying that's ridiculous, they lowered the figure to 1.1 million.
That's a lot. I mean, think about that. Just spend a minute on that. That's removing, almost 3 million people. And even that as a accusation against someone is that's unfathomable. Claiming that it was 3 million people killed more than than the actual claim.
Yeah, and they kept the original 6 million.
Okay. Exactly, they've still kept that. That's true.
Yeah. So that's basic. But again, that was all set up by the Russians. Okay, so now they find out. Oh, okay. So the plaque, the original plaque in Auschwitz up till 1990, said 4 million people were killed here. So then they had to make a new plaque. So when the Pope came back, a little after 90, they had to make, I think 89, I think it was, or 90. The Pope comes and they change the plaque, and now they say 1.1 million. And of course, as it went on, certain people would write about the topic because of the revisionists, and they would still, even Van Pelt, who did a lot of writing, pro-Holocaust writing, he even admitted 600,000 people were killed there. In other words, it went down from 4 million to 600,000, and it continues to go down and down and down. And basically, today, they say about 78,000 people died in Auschwitz, and half of them might have been Jews.
And that was then through disease and these kinds of things, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah. That included whatever. I mean, 78,000, and this included everything. I mean, how they died with disease or this and that. Now, in all the camps, okay, if you're dealing with Auschwitz and all the camps, remember, they had a good amount of camps all spread out through Germany and throughout in Poland. But basically, it came down to 6 major camps that they claim people were exterminated in. But anyway, so they say that approximately with all the camps, maybe 350,000 people died complete. And it might have been half again that were Jews. All right. Now this is being killed with all causes. Okay, sickness, death, disease, people being shot. Again, people were shot and people were killed because some of the camps, some of these camps, some people were criminals and they did things wrong. So, things happen.
And it was, obviously, we got to explain that too to our audience, that these were work camps. They were labor camps. This is where Germany managed to produce a lot of things that they needed for the war. Just this concept that the interest was to, house these people, clothe them, shave their heads, shuffle them through these different facilities and whatnot, as opposed to using them for labor, which was a much needed thing that they wanted at the time, is ridiculous in itself, right? That they even had time to spend, efforts on these various torture campaigns and electrified floors and all these kinds of outrageous claims that has come out from some of these testimonies from people who said they were there.
It's just amazing that people don't understand the camp system. They just don't understand that Auschwitz again was basically a work camp, especially Monowitz, where they were working it was called the Buna factory actually, and they were trying to actually make synthetic rubber, because at the end of the war, the Germans, well, actually during the war, Germany couldn't get rubber, okay, because they cut them off from rubber, and so Monowitz was the place where they were experimenting and making rubber and synthetic, I think even synthetic fuel too.
They did. Yeah.
So that was like a big deal there. So that was just a big, huge. There could have been 20,000 people working in Monowitz, that was shuffling between the camps, all 3 camps. They would go to work every day and come back. So there was a tremendous amount of people. I think in the whole Auschwitz camp system, I would say there's probably 200,000 people that probably ran through it. You know what I mean? From beginning to end,
right.
It was probably about 200,000. But again, they weren't all there at once.